Welcome into DRF Sportsbook's betting breakdown. We have an awesome episode on tap today as we're giving you the preview to the college football playoff. Georgia is taking on Ohio State in the Peach Bowl, and TCU is taking on Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl. This is going to be a fantastic first round of the college football playoff. One of the best we've had since 2017, 2018. This is tied for the second lowest all-time combined point spread between the two. Georgia -6.5 against Ohio State. Michigan -7.5 against TCU. So a total of 14 points. The last time we saw something this low was 2018. I believe it was a 2.5 and a 3.5 point spread. Ohio State, Oklahoma was involved, Clemson, Alabama, something along those lines. But one of the most competitive first rounds of matchups we have on tap. And I think there might be potential for an upset as well in this first round. And it's starting with this game. Georgia takes on Ohio State in the Peach Bowl tonight, tomorrow night, whenever you're watching this, at 8 p.m. Eastern. Georgia is -6.5, which you might think is a little low for Georgia, the defending national champions. But I'm here to tell you that I think Ohio State is the play. Ohio +6.5, Ohio State +6.5 is 100% the play, because according to every advanced metric, Ohio State is the better team. Ohio State is second in EPA overall. They can exploit the Georgia weakness, which Georgia's one weakness, if you can call it a weakness, is their pass defense. They rank 23rd in the nation in EPA per play allowed on pass plays. So Ohio State can take advantage of that. And let's not forget that Ohio State is a few plays away from taking down Michigan in the game. Everyone watched that game. We can all agree that Ohio State dominated the first half, and Michigan was able to pull away in the second just by kind of grinding that game out. Ohio State also has the edge with skill players and quarterback. I'm not sure I'm all in on Stetson Bennett. Yeah, he won the national championship last year. Sure, he was a Heisman candidate. I'll put quotes around that this year somehow, some way. But I don't think he's as good as CJ Stroud. I don't think the Georgia team skill players are as good as Ohio State's skill players. Ohio State has some of the best skill players in the entire nation. And then the only thing that I think Georgia has the edge in, outside of their defensive line, which, I mean, they're going to stop Ohio State's run game, but Ohio State makes their damage. They do their damage through the air. Ohio State averages over 9 yards per pass play this season, which they're going to continue to do that against Georgia here. And you can see some of the stats. The only thing that Ohio State doesn't have the edge in defensive line and coaching, and I don't think coaching is as much of a mismatch as we may think. So I just don't see Ohio State spotting Georgia an entire touchdown in this game. It is Georgia's defense will provide an insane challenge for Ohio State in this game, as they're the 8th best defense in the nation. But, I mean, Ohio State's not far behind. Ohio State defensively, they're 11th in EPA per play this season. They're 11th in EPA per game. So they're not a far cry off of the 8th best defense in the nation in Georgia. And like I said, Ohio State moves the ball extremely effectively through the air. Ohio State, per pass play, they're 4th in the nation in EPA per pass play, and Georgia is 23rd in the nation in defensive EPA per pass play. So Georgia is +6.5. Georgia is -6.5, and I think the play is Ohio State +6.5. You see our power line over on drf.com/sports. It thinks this is more of a pick'em, and it doesn't believe that Georgia has what it takes to cover this game. I will say I believe Georgia wins. If you're betting the money line, I think Georgia wins. But I think this is a fantastic game that goes down to the very wire. Kind of two extreme heavyweights in the college football landscape going to be exchanging knockout blows time and time and time again. Georgia's the more experienced team. They've been here before. We all know that. They took down Alabama last year to win the national championship. But I think Ohio State has what it takes. They have the explosive playability to beat Georgia, but at the very least, they should cover plus 6.5. I'm all over Buckeyes plus 6.5. We'll talk about some specials at the end of this episode that I think that provide some value. I'm not saying they're going to hit, but I think they provide a lot of value. So moving on from that game, we're going to go to the early game, TCU versus Michigan. It's in the Fiesta Bowl, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be another good game, at least according to the point spread. I'm on record. I'm going to go on record right now. I think Michigan cruises to a victory and makes this point spread look extremely laughable. I think Michigan destroys TCU in this one. It might get ugly. Michigan, according to advanced metrics, according to expected points added, they are the best team in the nation. They're one of the most evenly kind of set up teams in the nation. They average 11.16 EPA per game. That's second in the country. They have the fourth best defense. They have the eighth best offense. This is a Michigan team that can mess around and win the national championship this year. I think if Michigan gets a rematch with Ohio State, there's a very good chance that they can win the national championship. Heck, if Michigan gets a rematch with Georgia, I think Michigan has what it takes to win that game. And I think if Michigan can take down TCU, they'll be favored in the national championship regardless of who they face, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Georgia. I think Michigan is going to be favored in the national championship. A few weeks to prepare. I think Harbaugh will have his guys going, but I'm getting a little bit too ahead of myself. This game, TCU versus Michigan, -7.5 for the Wolverines. TCU's the 13th best team in the country. And when you're talking about the best team in the country to the 13th, that's a large drop-off. And TCU, they've been able to be kind of subdued a few times this season against Texas Tech, against Texas. Max Duggan, the Heisman finalist, didn't throw for over 200 yards. He didn't look necessarily fantastic. Against Kansas State, this was his Heisman moment. This was the game TCU at the time thought they needed to win to make it into the college football playoff, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't win in the biggest game of the season. Their offense was kind of, at times, lethargic. Their offense was kind of held down by Kansas State. Michigan is so much better than Kansas State. That's why I think Michigan -7.5 is honestly an easier play than the Ohio State-Georgia game. I think Michigan routes TCU. Max Duggan is good, but is he that good? I don't think so. He's 8th in passing efficiency. All right, that's fine. He's 20th in yards, 13th in touchdowns. He's 8th in yards per attempt at 9.02, which is a plus, but I'm just not entirely sold on Duggan to lead this TCU squad over Michigan. I'm just not all the way in on TCU. I will say I think TCU deserved this spot 100%, and it's going to be a shame when they get absolutely destroyed and people are going to be like, calling for Alabama should have got in, another team, another SEC team. No, I think it's right that a Big 12 team got in here with TCU. TCU did everything they needed to do. They won the regular season. Their only loss was in their conference championship. TCU deserved to be here, but it's going to be another example of a Big 10 team flexing their muscle over a Big 12 team in this game. It's -7.5. Our power line thinks it's more like Michigan -9. Our game simulators, one of them loves Michigan to absolutely destroy TCU. That's estimate number one. Estimate number two uses a little bit of different numbers, and it likes TCU to keep it close and actually cover this spread. But I really believe Michigan is going to rout TCU. That's why I'm all over Michigan -7.5. I may even sprinkle a couple alternate lines in there and put a couple units down. I love doing alt lines, but I think Michigan -7.5, 100% the play. They're going to take down TCU by 14 points, and it might get ugly, folks. Moving on from all of that, we got a couple fun specials, but we broke down. We said Michigan, Georgia are the two winners. I like Ohio State to cover +6.5, but I think Georgia pulls away with a 3-point, 2-point, gut-it out type of victory against Ohio State. So I like Michigan, Georgia to be the national championship this year. And if that happens, according to my numbers, Michigan would be favored by 1 point against Georgia in the national championship. And at that point, I love Michigan to win and cover that, and I will put a future down right now on Michigan plus 200 at DRF Sportsbook to win the national championship. I don't think Georgia at minus 152 provides you, the better, any value at all. According to advanced metrics, according to EPA per play, EPA per game, EPA offensively, EPA defensively, no matter how you cut it, Georgia's not the best team in the country. In fact, they're not even the second best team in the country. Georgia's the third best team behind the two Big Ten schools in Ohio State and Michigan. Michigan number 1, Ohio State number 2. That's why I think Georgia at plus 200 provides so much more value than Georgia does at minus 152. There's a special right now we have over at DRF Sportsbook, minus 110 for the national championship winner to be from the Big Ten. I think that winner is going to be Michigan. So instead of me taking that special at minus 110 and essentially giving away some money, I'm going to take Michigan plus 200. But if you're a little bit on the fence, I think there is a better chance that a Big Ten team wins this than the SEC. And right now you can get that at a better odds than Georgia to win it at minus 152. Now, I think if Michigan and Georgia play, there's going to be a lot of fun kind of games within the games. The key would be Michigan controlling the line of scrimmage. We won't necessarily get into that extremely, but I think Michigan, I'll just say it right now, the only thing they'd have to really worry about is slowing down Jalen Carter and company and this Georgia defensive line. And other than that, I think Michigan runs it really well, and without Blake Corum, that will be a struggle. But I think J.J. McCarthy, we saw it against Ohio State. He has what it takes to maybe make the throws that are needed. Michigan's also the better team, 8th best offensively, 4th best defensively. Georgia's 9th and 8th, respectively, in those two statistical categories. And a couple other specials to take a look at. I think there's a strong likelihood that Ohio State can beat Georgia. So if you really want to sprinkle money line on Ohio State there, I wouldn't blame you. I think there's some value in that. And because of that, there's a DRF Sportsbook special, another special. We have so many specials, every single one of them boosted 10%. So if you like one of these, you can jump on in there and get it at better odds. But there's a special for Michigan and Ohio State, the game special. Click over on the DRF specials kind of tab on the left rail, and it'll take you there. But Michigan and Ohio State, the game national championship edition, that's at plus 345. So it's essentially a parlay saying Michigan and Ohio State to win, 10% boosted to plus 345. I think if you believe Ohio State can take down Georgia, that's the play you want to do. I believe wholeheartedly there's not a chance in the world Max Duggan and TCU can beat Michigan. I think it's more likely Michigan wins by 40 than it is TCU wins. So if you're going on the fact that you think Ohio State can take down Georgia, make this special bet at plus 345. Maybe put a unit down or something on it and have yourself some fun. So thank you so much for tuning in to the DRF Sportsbook Betting Breakdown. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter giving you exclusive insights and bets, boosts, everything like that. And in the meantime, follow us on Twitter, social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere that you are on social media, we're right there with you. And subscribe right here on YouTube so you never miss one of our videos. We have awesome content coming out nearly every single day, breaking down games, Iowa State, Iowa, the national landscape. You don't want to miss a second of it. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Have a profitable New Year's weekend. We'll be potentially dropping some videos over the weekend, maybe not, but keep it locked on our social media for every single insight that you need to become a profitable bettor. See ya.